Close your eyes. Imagine the silence after your final heartbeat. Now, imagine it shatters. Not with peace, but with the sound of distant chains and the crackling flames of judgment. You think death is the end? Think again. Somewhere beneath your feet lies a realm darker than any nightmare you've dared to imagine. A place where the air itself feels heavy with judgment. Here, your soul is no longer your own. It becomes a case file, opened and inspected by judges with crimson skin and searing eyes, who know every sin you tried to bury, every lie, every cruelty, all of it, etched into blood-red ledgers, that drip with the weight of your guilt. This is Diyu, the Chinese hell, where the human soul collides with the supernatural, and the law of heaven reaches into the shadows below. In this sprawling underworld, Wang, the king of hell, rules over 10 merciless courts and 18 layers of torment, crafted for every imaginable vice. It is not just a place of fire and demons. It is a perfect machine of punishment and dread. Here, the greatest horror is not the torture itself. It's the slow, inescapable crawl towards it. The endless wait in line for your turn to suffer. Long before the echoing chambers and bustling courts of Diyu, the Chinese vision of the afterlife was simple. A realm of cold and shadow known as the Yellow Springs, or Huangquan, where the spirits of the dead assembled. These earliest descriptions, seen in stories from the spring and autumn period from 722 to 481 BC, offer a land of murky gloom, not of judgment or punishment, but of absence. There was no cosmic law, no tallying of sins, only a somber and featureless separation from the living. The tale of an official digging a passage to see his mother in the Yellow Springs, as recounted in the Zhou commentary, captures this haunting simplicity. In the Han Dynasty, burial customs evolved. Tombs were constructed as elaborate imitations of homes, and funerary objects reflected daily life. Clay figurines replaced precious belongings, and soon, paper representations stood in for both. Rituals and offerings reflected an intimacy with the dead, and the afterlife became a familiar parallel, a mirror world beneath the earth. Here, belief in a twin soul emerged, dividing Po and Hun, the yin and yang spirits. The Po's physical essence clung to the grave, and the Hun's vital force lingered on the ancestral tablet. These souls, sometimes thought to split further, required ritual care, ensuring the dead's peaceful passage, and the living's protection from restless ghosts. Yet, the boundaries of the underworld stayed vague, its structure undefined, until new waves of change arrived. In the early centuries, Buddhism journeyed from India to China, bringing radical new ideas: karma, rebirth, Naraka, and divine retribution. In Indian and Buddhist cosmology, Naraka is hell, a realm of suffering and torment, governed by the inexorable law of cause and effect. With Yama Raj at its helm, sins committed in life draw precise punishments in the afterlife, as Buddhist texts enumerate myriad hells, matched to karmic misdeeds, each calibrated to the gravity and intent behind the act. Chinese cosmology, before Buddhism, had no such systematic doctrine of reward and punishment. There was no detailed map of the soul's journey, no judge to weigh virtue, only the lingering of spirits and ancestral ghosts, governed by ritual necessity and familial duty. Buddhism changed this profoundly. The arrival of Buddhist beliefs introduced vivid torments and moral reckoning. Karma demanded accountability for every action. The self became a traveler through cycles of rebirth, shaped by deeds. A marked departure from the ancestry-based Chinese view. By the 1st century AD, the hybrid world of the underworld began to take shape, blending Buddhist Naraka and indigenous Chinese bureaucracy. Mount Tai, long revered in Chinese cosmology as a gateway to the land of the dead, was braided into Buddhist doctrine, as written in the tale from the compiled scriptures on the 6 perfections. After the end of one's life, the Hun soul enters the hells of Mount Tai, where they are burned and boiled and subjected to 10,000 cruelties. Now, the boundary between real mountains and imagined hells blurred. Ceremonial geography became mythic, and the god of the mountain entered Buddhist lore as the overseer of souls. Over centuries, the afterlife grew richer in detail. The once indistinct underworld was mapped as a terrifying network of courts and chambers. King Yama, originally from Hindu lore, introduced as Wang into Buddhism, became the sole sovereign of the Hell realm, ruling over a growing bureaucracy of underworld judges. Evidence from stories like the monk Huai's return from the dead, as recorded in the records of Luang's monasteries in 550 AD, shows King Yama as the historic centerpiece of Hell's court. But gradually, as the northern and southern dynasties between 386 to 589 AD unfolded, the afterlife adopted a distinctly Chinese courtroom setting, evolving away from Indian precedents, yet retaining the central figure of King Yama, the only remnant of direct Buddhist and Hindu influence. In the mixing of local Chinese beliefs, where Mount Tai was a gate to the spirit world, and the dead were managed not by abstract principles but by cosmic officials, a new mythology arose. Ritual merged with doctrine. The notorious 10 courts of hell and the 18 levels of torment coalesced from Buddhist Naraka's 8 great hells and Hindu punishments. Woven together with bureaucratic nuance, the Chinese hell became a place of both suffering and order, a supernatural realm ruled by law, haunted by justice. Another fundamental question lingered among the living. How long does a soul tarry between death and judgment? While Buddhist texts place the intermediate bardo state at 49 days, Chinese beliefs hold that the spirit lingers on earth for up to 7 days after death, returning home on the 7th day to bid a farewell. Some rituals extend this period, with prayers and offerings culminating on the 49th day mark, the transition to final judgment. And thus, the Chinese hell evolved into the shadowy maze of Diyu, where every soul is marked by the deeds of life, the power of ritual, and the legacy of blending cosmologies across millennia. Once a soul steps beyond the shrouded ghost gate, shadowed wardens, ox head, and horseface seize it with unerring grasp, ushering it down the bleak, winding road that leads into the heart of Diyu. This is no chaotic wasteland, but a fateful odyssey, each stage bringing the soul before a sterner judge and a more terrible reckoning. The 10 courts of hell stand waiting, unbroken chain of judgment where every sin is weighed, every virtue measured, and every whisper of one's earthly life exposed. The journey begins in the hall of King Guang. Here the mirror of retribution looms, a tall, spectral surface in which the soul is forced to witness every act it has ever committed, both light and dark. Qin Guang's cold gaze examines the truth revealed, assigning the soul's next destination. This is the realm of revelation, and the soul remains for 7 days to taste the bitterness of its own deeds. From there, the condemned soul shuffles on to the hall of King Chujiang, where the air burns with accusation. Crimes of murder, theft, adultery, and the shattering of family bonds are tried under his stern eye. Punishment begins to take form here. Limbs torn asunder, skin seared, the sinner left to endure the raw wound of guilt. 7 more days pass in this court, each one heavier than the last. The road snakes ever deeper into shadow, until the soul reaches King Song Di's hall. Those who abused authority, cheated in trade, or showed cruelty to animals now stand trembling before him. His land is swept with icy winds that freeze to the marrow, millstones that crush bone, and blades that pierce without end. 7 days here mark the passage into deeper suffering. Judge Wu Guan waits in the 4th hall, an enigmatic figure whose punishments are rooted in the breaking of the 5 precepts: lying, theft, fornication, drunkenness, and violence. Great wheels turn, grinding the sinful in their relentless spin. Mallets fall with the force of thunder. The same span of 7 days presses the soul into the shape of its next trial. At the 5th hall, the infamous King Wang or King Yama himself presides. He commands over cases of extortion, robbery, and the exploitation of the weak. Here jagged mountains tear the flesh of the wicked, and cauldrons hiss as victims are submerged in boiling oil. Yet Yang Wanfk is also known, rarely, for his capacity for mercy. Commuting sentences for those who genuinely repent. 7 days here may be a reprieve, or an intensification. The descent turns darker in the 6th hall, ruled by King Biancheng, the king of transformations. Souls who cursed, kidnapped, or spread ruin through deceit find themselves impaled on razor-edged branches, or sawn in two. Many are transformed into lower life forms, beasts of burden, scavengers, according to the nature of their sins. The transformations are neither swift nor merciful. The soul remains here for 42 days, its identity slowly dissolving. King Taishan rules the 7th hall. His name and seat forged from the sacred mountain, long considered a gate to the underworld. Those guilty of slander, violence against the vulnerable, or driving others to desperate deaths suffer here. Tongues are torn out, bodies plunged into boiling oil. The soul serves 4 to 9 days in this place. Each punishment, a bitter echo of the harm once inflicted. The 8th hall belongs to King Pingzheng, the impartial one. His gaze falls hard upon examination cheats, the unfilial, and the willfully sale fees. Punishments escalate. Intestines drawn out, bodies disassembled. Here fairness is absolute, yet unflinching. 100 days are spent under his rule, each one carved into the spirit as an indelible mark. In the 9th hall, King Diyu holds his macabre court. He is known as the Market Lord, and his domain is a place of public spectacle. Justice displayed before the gathering shades. Those who raped, robbed, or abandoned the helpless are paraded and mutilated, their heads and limbs separated before the assembly. This is a slow sentence. A full year bound here, chained to the memory of their crimes, and the jeers of fellow spirits. Finally comes the 10th hall of King Zhuanlun, the Lord of the Turning Wheel. Here, scrolls of karma are unfurled, and the shape of the soul's next life is decreed. Every deed, every scar of suffering endured, is taken into account. The decision may be rebirth as human, animal, or something far stranger, the wheel of fate spinning with divine precision. 3 years may pass, as the soul awaits this final, unalterable return to the mortal world. Time unfurls strangely in these courts. Some spirits pass quickly through, their story simple, their burdens light. Others linger for years, weighed down by the complexity of their tales, interrogated and re-examined as their fates unfold. For here, punishment is never the sole purpose. Transformation and redemption lie hidden in the heart of even the harshest sentence. Each court not only issues verdicts, but maintains records. Registers marked with names, crimes, and punishments. Legends tell that skilled Taoist priests can summon these records, even alter them, with rituals to aid or condemn. On rare occasions, the living are invited into Diyu's halls, in dreams or trances to serve as witnesses or advocates, bridging the two realms. But the journey does not end in torment. Once the final judgment is passed, the soul approaches the banks of the River of Oblivion, where waits Meng Po, the Lady of Forgetfulness. She offers the draught of reincarnation, a broth that dissolves memory and sorrow. With this sip, the soul forgets the agony and memory of its past life, its stains dissolved, and it is sent to a new incarnation, perhaps as a rich man, a beggar, a bird, or a beast, depending on the sum of deeds and the verdict of the courts. For even here, in hell's quietest halls, mercy lies in the promise of a new beginning, however harsh the journey may have been. Then, there is a more harrowing realm, a complex system of torment known as the 18 layers of hell. This concept, emerging from Buddhist scripture, particularly the Sutra on Questions about Hell, presents a vast network of realms designed to punish specific sins with relentless precision. Originally, this text describes 134 hells, but over time this was simplified into 18 distinct levels for clarity and ritual use in Chinese Buddhist cosmology. These include realms of scorching heat and icy cold, reflecting a deeper Buddhist division of hells. Hot hells, where sinners are burnt and fried in infernos, and cold hells, where victims suffer unending frostbite and freezing torment. This duality of heat and cold symbolizes the intensity of suffering, based on the nature of one's karma. This system is intricately linked to the earlier judgments, made in the 10 courts. The first court, holding the mirror of retribution, often acts as the gateway, revealing the full measure of a soul's sins and determining which layer of hell fits their crimes best. Thus, the 18 layers can be understood as the execution grounds for the verdicts passed in the courts, where karmic justice is exacted with merciless artistry. The first layer is the chamber of tongue-ripping. Here, liars, those who twisted words to wound, are met with the sharp, surgical hands of hell's wardens, who pull out their tongues, so they are silent now for eternity. The second layer reveals the scissors chamber, where those who spied and gossiped feel the biting steel slicing their flesh, a twisted mirror of their sharp words in life. Onward still to the third layer. Trees of knives rise gnarled and hungry, beckoning adulterers and betrayers of trust to climb, while their skin is shredded from bone. The fourth layer's cauldrons bubble, boiling traitors, and cheats alive in a stew of their own poisons. In the sinister fifth layer, those who took lives by violence find themselves crushed under heavy boulders, the weight equal to the suffering they sowed. The chambers descend in an unholy parade, each tailored for a different vice. Thieves are sawn in half with corded blades, their screams mingling with the scraping of steel. Swindlers and bribe-takers are thrown onto icy plains, shivering with eternal regret. Their nakedness, a reminder that riches cannot clothe the soul. The chamber of mirrors reveals true faces. Hypocrites are forced to gaze into their own corrupted reflections until madness takes them. There is another chamber where intestines are pulled and bones pounded to powder, the air thick with the copper tang of pain. Even worse await lower still. Souls, who abused their power or tormented the weak, are forced through mountains of knives and fields of fire. There, the ghosts of their victims accuse them with every step, unending, relentless. The 10th layer drowns the greedy in ever-rising rivers of filthy blood, while those who mocked the suffering of others are made to stand forever in these lakes. Past the halfway point, punishment grows more abstract, a room where the guilty are flayed, their skin remade and peeled again and again, until the spirit nearly forgets its shape. But even as form dissolves, the soul endures. Pain is the lesson, which it can never escape. Then, there is the penultimate level, cold beyond cold. The chamber of ice, reserved for the cold-hearted. Here, suffering takes the form of relentless frost, splitting flesh to bone in silence. And at last, the 18th layer, where the worst are cast, those who committed all manners of evil. This pit is a storm of all torments, boiling, freezing, stabbing, grinding, and unnameable horrors. There is no rest, only the hope, however faint, that the time will end with rebirth, that the cycle will begin anew. Yet, nothing here is chaotic for its own sake. Each torment is exacting, each process a grotesque lesson. Together, the courts and the 18 layers form a profound narrative of moral order in Chinese and Buddhist thought. The afterlife is not merely a place of fearsome punishment, but a vast, structured system of cause and effect, where every act ripples across the boundaries of life and death, judgment and pain. This complex vision of hell continues to shape cultural rituals and imaginations about justice beyond the mortal coil. Beyond the sovereign courts and the tormented chambers, the underworld brims with guardians who enforce and sustain its intricate order. In daoist tradition, celestial and infernal spirits form elaborate hierarchies, each spirit holding a title as precise as any civil official. The heavenly inspectors, who patrol the borderlands between realms. The registrars of ghosts, who maintain rosters of wandering souls. And the spirit scribes, who inscribe fate upon ethereal ledgers. These supernatural functionaries mirror the offices of the living world, a testament to the belief that order, even in death, must be maintained with ritual precision. Perhaps the most iconic enforcers of hell's law are the pair known simply as Oxhead and Horseface. With skins pale as ancient bone, and eyes that glow like embers, they serve as the underworld's patrol and police force, seizing errant spirits and herding newcomers to judgment. Legends also speak of living officials in hell, Taoist priests and magistrates, who serve time-bound appointments in Diyu. Donning spectral robes by night, to oversee investigations of particularly convoluted cases. Among these, the story of Magistrate Li Shizhen stands out, a tale that blurs the boundary between mortal authority and infernal power. Li Shizhen was famous in life for his wisdom with herbal medicine and his kindness toward the sick. Legend says he was summoned to the 5th court of hell when the night was deepest and the air thick with dread. There, he faced spirits, condemned for poisoning or hurting others with venom or disease. They suffered unending sickness as punishment for their cruel deeds. Dressed in his scholar's robe, Li Shizhen didn't seek to torment. Instead, he devised harsh remedies that mirrored the pain these souls had caused. However, his treatments carried a deeper magic. With each dose, he struck a bargain with the underworld. If villagers in the human world made prayers or burned spirit money for the dead, the suffering of both worlds could be eased. Thus, Li Shizhen forged a powerful covenant. His ghostly cures became bridges for hope and healing, allowing the living to help the tormented souls below by honoring old traditions. Through this mysterious pact, the line between mercy and punishment blurred, and redemption in hell became possible, all guided by the compassion of a healer who refused to let suffering go unanswered. These living envoys act as bridges between worlds, reminding us that the veil is thin and permeable, so closely intertwined are mortal and infernal administrations that some daoist temples keep registers of names to be submitted to Wang himself. Petitions carried on paper boats or burned as offerings in smoky courtyards. Each burning scroll is a plea for mercy, a formal application to alter destiny, proof that even in a realm governed by cosmic justice, a well-placed request can sway fate. In the dim recesses of the underworld, ghostly clerks toil by lantern light, sifting endless appeals and grievances, their whispers rising like smoke into the dark. These are the ancients, servants of emperors in life, now bound to eternal duty. Hell's registers and ranks reveal an unsettling truth. Justice, whether divine or human, depends on order, yet always teeters on the edge of tyranny. In their tireless work, we glimpse ourselves, forever chained to the laws we forge, and the shadows of the legacies we leave behind. In villages across China, the living pay careful attention to the underworld's timetable, marking ritual days in sevens and fortnights. For they believe, the soul's journey through the 10 courts unfolds over 4 to 9 days after death. On the 7th, 14th, 21st, and especially the 4 to 9th day, families gather to offer rice, tea, and incense at ancestral altars, beseeching Wang's mercy and safe passage for loved ones. Each offering is laid out with precise ceremony. Red candles for protection, paper money for fees, and spirit money boats set afloat on rivers to ferry both tribute and prayers beyond the mortal shore. Then comes the Hungry Ghost Festival, held on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, when the veil thins and restless spirits roam freely. Streets are lined with makeshift stages for opera performances, crowds applauding in hopes of pleasing wandering souls. Tables of fruit, roasted meat, and steamed buns stand at doorways. A sumptuous banquet to quell the envy of ghosts doomed to hunger. Bright lanterns float at dusk, guiding spirits back, before midnight's toll seals the gates once more. In this festival spectacle, we glimpse the living world's deep yearning to honor the dead while averting misfortune. Even in modern cities, neon shrines appear in alleyways, and Taoist priests don ritual robes to chant scriptures that summon Diyu officials, petitioning for relief from illness or disaster. Offerings are still burned, paper cars, houses, and even smartphones. Symbolic comforts for ancestors who dwell in Diyu's vast bureaucracy. Through these ceremonies, the ancient system lives on, its shadow woven into daily life. Each prayer, each flicker of incense smoke, reaffirms that the boundary between life and death remains a sacred, negotiated space, guarded by laws, both mortal and divine. Even in the underworld's ironclad bureaucracy, inefficiency and error find their place among the damned. Legend tells of the 6th court, where administrative backlogs sometimes delay judgments for decades. Of sinners lost in the shuffle as clerical mistakes with their case files, buried beneath mountains of paperwork. Yet, A deeper tension blooms between the Chinese bureaucratic model and Buddhist notions of impersonal karma. Whereas karma unfolds as a natural moral law, unbiased, automatic, and inscrutable, the 10 courts demand formal procedures, hearings, and appeals. Souls plead their case, present evidence, even haggle over minor infractions, as if cosmic justice required human-style debates. This contrast highlights a fascinating philosophic blend. Ineffable karmic force, tempered by the familiar machinery of courts and judges. Paradoxically, the king of hell himself is subject to judgment. Stories recount how Wang is judged by a higher tribunal, often depicted as the Jade Emperor or Bodhisattva Ksitagarbha, ensuring even divine rulers are unable to escape accountability. In these tales, the mighty king petitions for leniency or contextual mercy. This layered oversight emphasizes the impartiality of justice in Diyu. It binds every being to the same standards of fairness. Perhaps the most whimsical of these contradictions is the Imperial exam system of the afterlife. Much like scholars who once dedicated years to passing civil service exams, spirits in Diyu undergo spectral examinations, testing their moral knowledge. They answer riddles about virtue and vice, and recite ancient classics, under the stern gaze of spirit examiners. Success can elevate a soul to a minor official rank in hell's bureaucracy, granting temporary reprieve or reduced torment. Failure, of course, deepens punishment. This fantastical echo of earthly education underscores a core belief. Moral cultivation is a lifelong exam, one whose questions span lifetimes. Through these controversies, bureaucratic blunders, philosophical tensions, divine accountability, and afterlife examinations, the mythic underworld reveals itself, not as a monolithic terror, but as a complex institution, shaped by human experience. It speaks to our enduring preoccupation with justice, our awareness of fallibility, and our hope that even in the darkest places, order, mercy, and wisdom might prevail. As the lanterns dim on Diyu's iron gates, ponder this. Even the fearsome judges of hell find their time limited, their power fleeting in the endless procession of souls awaiting judgment. These ancient stories mirror our own world. The machinery of order, the dance of mercy and law, and the longing for a second chance. We all join that slow, endless queue, waiting to be seen, to be judged, to be heard. In the end, true justice asks more of us than fear. It calls for vigilance, humility, and compassion. What wisdom do you carry from this ancient underworld? Share your thoughts below, and journey on with us. Like, subscribe, and let your voice join the great court of storytellers.